Wake up, sports fans. It's time for the weekend wake up with Vito Avenanti, Kyrie Thompson, and Matt Moore. We've had some time off, gentlemen. Family stuff going on. Kyrie has some sort of rotating sickness going on over at his home where every week it's something new. But hey, we all have little kids, and so we all understand that. We're jumping on slightly late today, and the reason for that is I was on my way home from. Whoa, what's going on there? I was on my way home
on my end because
share
our link to our loyal followers.
There we go. That's what I like to see. I was just confused there for a second because really, I don't need to hear myself speak twice.
No, not a single person.
I don't know. Some people might argue that fact. Let's be honest.
That's true. That is true. I was on my way home. The reason why we're a little late, I was on my way home from swim lessons. And Matt, what was your response to that?
Like, hey man, it's never too late to learn how to swim.
So funny story about that. Obviously, these swim lessons were for Penelope, but funny story about that being never too late. I didn't learn how to swim until I was like 14 years old. So the joke actually cut a little deep. It hit kind of close.
Yeah, that's why we're late. We had to have a little pre-show mending of the fences. Apparently, I hurt Vito in a way that I didn't know that I could hurt him. So
yeah, it was only going to be a 2-man show this week. Matt was going to be excommunicated,
suspended for a week.
God, I can only imagine all the ways you've hurt each other in the past before I got involved. So this one, yeah, this must have been unique.
Shots fired. Yeah. I didn't know.
I was going to say too, Maya is doing swim lessons right now as well. We went to our first one, last week? And she hates it.
Sounds like it's going well.
So Penny's been going for weeks, and she's so hit or miss. She will have these weeks where she loves doing everything, or she'll have a week like this week where I have to force her to do everything, and then things that she has done in the past, she is screaming not to do. They put a slide up, to teach them just dropping in and that kind of stuff. And she's done the slide before and she loved it. And this week she looked at the slide like it smacked her in the face last time. She was petrified of this thing, screaming. She was like a koala attached to me. I could not get her away from me, and I was just like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on this week. And one of the other dads, who also had a pretty sweet mustache, by the way, one of the other dads was like, yeah, this was us last week. So I totally feel your pain. But yeah, I mean, I personally just want to show back up and do my own swim lessons, where I just dunk the kid and we call it a day.
This is how we learn. We just threw you
in the
pool.
Throw him in the water.
Right. I'm going to tell you right now, that's exactly why I was petrified of swimming until I was 14, because I'm pretty sure that's what they tried to do to me. Oh, man. All right, we got to get to the show. We got a good show for you today. I want to welcome everyone into the Weekend Wake Up. You can join the conversation on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. If you'd like to go subscribe on YouTube, go to YouTube, search my name, Vito Avenanti, and you can subscribe that way. You can follow the show on Facebook, facebook.com/Weekend Wake Up Show. And you can join us on Twitch, twitch.tv/VJA Sports Media. If you do join the conversation, we will try to get to as many of your comments and questions as possible live on air. You can also follow all three of us on Twitter, at KDThompson5, at Sports with More with 2 O's, and at VJA Sports Media. But we're going to jump right in. We've got some NFL training camps kicking off this week. We've got a big name on the move for the Bears, and we're going to talk MLB trade deadline. But let's go back to that Bears training camp. I'm gonna keep this question simple because we're going to get into this here. We're going to talk about the offensive line. We're going to talk about the wide receivers. But what is something, Kyrie, we'll start with you. What should the fans be looking for as practice kind of ramps up and we look at what this team actually is after the moves that were made in the offseason?
Well, I think the offensive line is going to be, it's going to be the number one, because I think that I like the potential organization of it. I'm a little worried, honestly, about Tevin Jenkins being slotted over so quickly to left tackle. I would have much preferred if the Bears had kept Leno and let Jenkins play on the right. I don't love the idea of Germain Ifedi at right tackle at all. And then you have Sam Mustipher at center, whom I like. And I think he did a real solid job last year. But again, it's like as a starter, as a full-time starter, we will see how this goes. And then obviously you have your veteran guys, Whitehair and Daniels. Daniels was out so much of last year. You wonder how he's going to be. So how the offensive line looks, I think that it's also going to be interesting to see who now is the slot guy that they're going to prefer. Brad Biggs hinted after this big trade that happened with the Bears that we're going to get to with Anthony Miller, that Damiere Byrd might be the front runner for the slot. We'll see how that goes. I don't necessarily love that, and I'll explain why later. And then also the corners on defense, right? How is that going to look with no Kyle Fuller? There's a range of opinions on Kyle Fuller, but ultimately the guy was a good number one. He was a solid number one cornerback. Now you're relying on Jalen Johnson to stay healthy and Desmond Trufant. Like I think that's a problematic position. So you want to see those corners make some plays because I think that's going to be pretty worrisome.
Yeah, Matthew, Kyrie brought up some great points here. The offensive line being, question number one, there's been some talk that the Bears might attempt to sign someone to play right tackle, even though, as Kyrie brought up, we're a little confused why Tevin Jenkins was just handed the left tackle position. Are you okay going into the season with Tevin Jenkins and Jermaine Ifedi as your tackles?
No, and I said this when they drafted Jenkins, that why switch him, right? Why put him in a spot where he's not comfortable? He's good at that position. Why move him? You've had problems with this before. I don't want to have that conversation again, but again, you're trying to piecemeal this thing together again, and there's a lot of unknowns. And now, guess what? You want to ask what I'm watching for? Of course, I'm watching the quarterback. I want to see this quarterback. I want to see if he's going to be the guy. What do you do with him? If that's an issue, if the line is an issue, are you more prone to run him out in the background? Or run him out back there? I don't know. So yeah, Kyrie brings up good points with the line, but for me, it's all about the quarterback, right? It's all about did they finally find the guy? I don't buy that Andy Dalton. I don't buy that Andy Dalton's going to be starting. I really don't. Well, to me, Justin Fields has to be better than Andy Dalton. He has to be. If he's not, you have problems.
I would slightly disagree with that. I'll tell you this. Here's what I'll say. The quarterback thing is so obvious. I was just like, I don't even know if I should mention it, but you're absolutely the number one thing with this team is going to be what the hell is this quarterback situation going to look like, and it's similar to how it's going to be in New England. Like the number one question everybody wants to know, is it going to be Cam or is it going to be Mac? With the Bears side, I've heard people say Justin Fields needs to be better than Andy Dalton right now, or obviously we've got the wrong guy. And I don't agree with that, because I think that quarterback is such a hard position to play as a rookie that I'm not going to feel any kind of way if Justin Fields doesn't beat Andy Dalton out in training camp. I just won't. I think that, he'll play when he's ready to play. And for me, it's not going to be a question of, is Justin Fields better at football than Andy Dalton? Because Lord, he is better than Andy Dalton at football just by existing. But the question is, can he start an NFL game and run an NFL offense week one better than Andy Dalton can? And that is a much more difficult question to answer. So I am with you, Matt. I am of the opinion, unlike my situation in New England, that if Justin Fields looks like he's ready to play right now, let that boy spin, because he's better. He is even
with the offensive line in a confusing state.
Honestly, possibly even because the offensive line is in a confusing state. If they can't protect him, that man can at least run. You know what I mean?
And you still have to figure out what's going on with Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers isn't playing, that division's wide open.
Yeah, right? But the Bears have to worry about their own stuff.
I get it, man, but
they have enough problems than worrying about Aaron Rodgers. Worry about Aaron Rodgers when he shows up on the field against you. Otherwise, they have so many problems. And here's the thing, we've talked about the offensive line. We've talked about Kyrie, you mentioned the wide receivers. Allen Robinson is playing probably his last year with the Bears. Here's my biggest issue.
That drives me insane, by the way.
I completely agree, but here's my biggest issue. And by the way, if you're just joining the show, thank you for doing so. This is the Weekend Wake Up. I'm Vito. That's Kyrie and Matt. You can join us on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, all of the above. We've got some great info coming at you for a little bit. We also have unsanctioned buffoonery later in the show. But for what the Bears have done, and I mentioned this to you guys before the show, the problem I'm having is with the direction the Bears have chosen, because the direction they've chosen is actually like 4 different directions. Because what they did here is they kept the coaching staff that they had from 2 consecutive 500 seasons, showing that, well, we don't really care what these guys have done because, well, we're going to blame it on the previous quarterback, which we all think Mitch Trubisky, really can't play in general, but we're going to essentially package him up. We're going to package up Mitch Trubisky. We're going to send him up the river, and we're going to say, well, we're going to try something new. Okay, so they signed Andy Dalton. They followed up the Andy Dalton signing by drafting Justin Fields, which is fantastic for the organization moving forward, unless you do something stupid like take away his best option, which is Allen Robinson. Unless you do something stupid like maybe this team is garbage this year, and the organization actually does decide to get rid of Matt Nagy. Now you drafted Justin Fields, and he, in his second season, is also on his second head coach who didn't draft him, who knows if wanted him, whatever.
See, I don't think that's going to happen, though.
You could say, how could somebody not want Justin Fields? But a head coach that comes in wants his own guy. So maybe it's an off chance, Matt. Maybe it's not the number one option for the Bears.
I think they'd have to.
None of these guys come back. None of these guys come back. And if that's the case, you're now putting Justin Fields in his second offense in 2 years. And essentially what you're doing as an organization is the same thing you've done for approximately 100 years, and just ruin every good thing that you've ever done by just ineptitude.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I don't see that happening unless this team goes, 0-17 or has some sort of catastrophic season where they look horrible, right? Like with that draft, and we've talked about this, we're all under the opinion that those guys signed extensions. We're not thinking that they're on the chopping block right now. I think
we're under that opinion, but
I think they're here for another 2 to 3 years at least.
We don't. I'll say this, we don't know this, but I think that all they have to do, if they go 8-9 or, somewhere, in that vicinity this year, of course they're back, because look what they've got to sell you. And I mean, this obviously is just like, this is all, predicated on record. Like this, I don't know if Justin Fields plays. I mean, of course he's going to play at some point, right? But it's like how he plays or whatever. But you've got something to sell now. We talked about this, leading into the draft, right? They have something to sell now. We have Justin Fields, who has legitimate top 5 quarterback in the NFL upside.
Yeah, but if your head coach is bottom 5, who cares?
He's not.
Do you know what I'm saying? No, I know he's not. But you know what I'm saying, Kyrie? Come on, like
yeah,
he's not. The shine has worn off whatever Matt Nagy was supposed to be. But are they just packaging that up as, well, he didn't have his quarterback? He was a good quarterback, so we're okay.
I would say, I wonder if it's more, and I mean, you could say arguably the shine has worn off, Matt Nagy for sure, but I think the shine has worn more off Ryan Pace potentially, because and Nagy has some questionable personnel related decisions to his credit too, because I've heard that the Miller thing was Nagy pushed for that, and that Nagy pushed for Jimmy Graham, but at the same time, Nagy was telling, from again what I've heard, is that Nagy was basically telling Pace, like, I can't work with this dude behind center. You know what I mean? He's not it, right? And the fact Pace, basically being like, yes, I want to, like, let's see what Trubisky can do, for as long as he can, right? It's like that part is not going to look good with Pace. He screwed that up, right? And he set the organization back with, his reliance on Trubisky, right? For however long, that he did. So I think that there is that bit of like, hey man, like let's see what a quarterback can do with my offense, because my offense is good, right? And also the fact that he doesn't have a losing record technically, right?
Look, I think this is obviously
you can push that, yeah.
So let me say this.
I'm not against you on this.
You brought up Ryan Pace, and I'm glad you did, because I want to talk about the move that happened yesterday. Okay, so I put this on here as big name, okay, because he was a second-round pick. He had a pretty decent rookie year, and then he spent 2 seasons just playing like absolute garbage. So Anthony Miller has been traded to the Texans for what essentially is they gave him up to swap late-round picks. That's really all it is. They didn't get anything substantial for him. So a second-round pick that the Bears drafted has now become, well, we'll take your 6th and you take our 7th, or whatever it is. And, you went back to Ryan Pace. Moves like this, and I don't mean trading Miller away, but recognizing that you made a mistake and making this move, there's 2 ways to look at it. Well, they recognize they made a mistake and they made the right move in getting rid of him, or they've made so many damn mistakes that they have to continue making these moves in order to fix the problems they had. And what happens is it then sets the organization back a year or 2 years or 3 years. Matt, I think we're all okay with Anthony Miller no longer being on the Bears, but which direction do you look at this from, as far as Anthony Miller was a mistake and we finally got rid of him, but there's got to be more to it than that, right?
It's just another name in a long list, right? Of his higher draft picks that don't work out, and you're going backwards when you get rid of these guys, and you're not developing them, right? And that's been a question of this coaching staff. Can they actually develop anybody? I'm still saying that I think that they've been able to hit the reset button with the Justin Fields pick, but it's more of the same, right? Like you make these high draft picks that don't pan out, and all of a sudden you're giving them away for 6, 7 round picks, essentially, special teamer value at this point. Like, at what point is enough? What is the move that is going to be it for them to realize that Ryan Pace just isn't it? Like, I'm sorry, like I don't understand what more this guy has to do. Like, did they get Justin Fields? Okay, yeah, but that doesn't erase his history of just god awful, picks when they matter. He's good in the later rounds, he's found value, but this team is where it is because of the decisions that he's made, particularly in the draft. So I don't know, man. It's a head scratcher for sure. It's just more affirmation of things that we already know, right?
Yeah, and you could say you could potentially just be like, well, good job, good on them for recognizing that they screwed up, and now they're going to move on. I feel like, again, being out here in New England, that's the conversation people are having about Bill Belichick right now, is that, well, he messed up with not having great weapons around his quarterbacks last year, and he went out and fixed it by spending a boatload of money to get some new ones, right? But that's Bill Belichick, right? That's a guy who's won 6 Super Bowls and won 1 million NFC championship or AFC championships, and has all the success, right? Ryan Pace is a guy who has 1 playoff win, during his tenure as a general manager, to his credit. And he has traded up for several draft picks that, are no longer here. Right? They didn't get a second contract here. So it's like, you can't just lightly, and I'm not saying that you're doing this, right? Not at all. Like, I think we're all in agreement here. You can't sweep that under the rug. You can't say, well, at least they cut bait, when they needed to. Good on them. It's like, now this is the 3rd or 4th time you said that. You just got to stop. It's got to stop. Okay. Now, I feel so much better about the prospect of Justin Fields being the guy that finally breaks that trend, because he is just a level of talent and I think drive and also just a track record of success that like Mitchell Trubisky didn't have. None of those other guys had. None of them had even, a tenth of the resume, and just talent, raw talent that Justin Fields has, at least in my opinion. So I feel like there's a possibility he could break that trend. But the fact that it took you 4 tries or whatever it is to finally get it right, like I'm sorry, that's not how good organizations are run. You can't.
Here's my biggest problem, Kyrie. Here's my biggest problem, Kyrie, and we've touched on this before. The biggest problem I have with Ryan Pace is, everyone tells you, well, he traded this and he got 3 more draft picks in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round, and that's where he makes his best picks. 4th, 5th, 6th. He makes all these great picks in the 4th, 5th, and 6th. That's wonderful. But you know what sets you back as an organization? Blowing 1st and 2nd round picks. And it's a common theme, which is why I had no problem, and this sounds terrible because people are like, well, you're just giving away picks. I had no problem with the Khalil Mack trade, when it happened. People were like, well, that's a lot to give up. And then when he has a bad game, they're like, well, this wasn't worth it. I'll be honest with you. I'd rather have Khalil Mack any day of the week over any one of his first-round picks other than Roquan Smith. Yeah. I'd rather have Khalil Mack. I'd rather he give up first-round picks for elite talent because he's going to screw it up. That's my opinion. But
it's like I'm happy to have Khalil Mack be my first-round pick for a couple of years, right? And I think that that's the thing we're talking about, right? It's great that Ryan Pace does a good job in the middle rounds of a draft because that is how you build solid, complete teams, right? It's like you do it in free agency, right? But those middle,
they can't all be first round picks, but you have to fill out a team.
6th round guys that fill out a team, and you get good mileage out of them for 3-4 years or whatever it is, and maybe they get on a second contract for the cheap, if they're playing well. That's great, but elite talent, you got to have elite talent, and specifically, you need to have elite talent at the most important position on the field, and they haven't had it. They've never had it, arguably, ever, right? Or at least like guys, not in the 40s. You can't.
Do you guys feel he gets a free pass with the Justin Fields pick? So let's say Justin Fields doesn't pan out, right? Let's say he's not what we think he's going to be, and he just doesn't work out. Do you think that's another black eye on Pace, or do you think that's just a case where you did the homework, you knew that was the guy, you went for him? I'm sounding like a lot like the Mitch Trubisky pick. Because
if Justin Fields doesn't pan out, he loses his job. There's no –
he might lose his job before that.
You don't get to draft 3 franchise quarterbacks in the first round. You don't get to sign eight franchise quarterbacks. You just don't get to do it.
No, I'm with you. Like, he loses his job. Obviously, yes. But do you think that goes down –
But when he applies for his next job, he says, this was the best player available. We did everything we could, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
Well, I think, again, as we talked about, if it happened in a vacuum, you could say, you know what? Yeah, I traded up. I really believed in this guy, and it didn't work out. We missed the pick, right? Because people miss on quarterbacks. It happens every year. There's going to be a bunch of some of those top 5 quarterbacks aren't going to pan out,
because I feel like that was the argument from Mitch, right? Everybody's like, oh, they did their due diligence. That's their guy. They went and got him, conviction, whatever else that people want to say, right? But all of us looking at that pick, we're like, wait, what? Who? From where? Yeah. What's a Mitch? What's a Mitch Trubisky?
Or in my case,
I called him Trubinsky for 4 years.
Yeah. Or in my case, when it happened, I was like, I didn't say shit. I was just like, what is this?
Stunning.
At least when Justin Fields got picked, we had an inkling it was coming, and I got off a few holy shits, on camera and stuff like that.
It was what? Matt, I'm sorry you weren't there for that because it was awesome as it was happening. As soon as the trade happened, Kyrie's like, this is happening. This is happening. We were live, and he was just like, "This is happening."
It was so fun. But to answer your question, Matt, I think ultimately, if it wasn't gonna be the 4th time it happened, then he would probably be able to say that. But because it would be the 4th time it happened,
Right.
then yes, it's a black eye and you don't get a pass. That's how I see it.
I completely agree. Before we move on from the Bears, because we do still have a bunch to get to in a shortened amount of time, I want to talk to you guys real quick about what my biggest concern is. These are all concerns, everything we talked about. Wide receiver, offensive line, and actually I don't think wide receiver is much of a concern anymore. It's just more about who actually makes the team. But outside of the direction the Bears have chosen, I still think my biggest concern right now might be the defense. And I know that sounds strange because they have some elite players on the defense, but you also got rid of some pretty serviceable and pretty good guys in general. And while Eddie Goldman is coming back, and that's all fantastic, Akeem Hicks hasn't really been Akeem Hicks for a couple years now. And maybe that's because Eddie Goldman was gone last year. And you could look at all of these things. But we all know what Robert Quinn has been and has done. Danny Trevathan's getting older. Your starting corners right now are Jalen Johnson and Desmond Trufant. And other than Eddie Jackson, who last year, you have Tashawn Gibson as You have Tashawn Gibson as your safety, and maybe Deion Bush. That concerns me. Looking at the guys they have, and this guy's getting older, and this guy's no longer here, I'm a bit concerned. Does the defense concern either one of you at all, or is this? I'm actually excited to watch the offense, but the defense kind of scares me.
I think that the front four, the defensive front seven could be pretty solid. You have one of the elite, inside linebackers in the league, and Roquan Smith. He's going to be here. They're going to pay him, assuming that nothing crazy happens. He's going to be anchoring, the inside of that defensive, front seven for a minute. Eddie Goldman coming back is big if he's healthy, because they got run on last year in a way that I don't think they would have gotten run on if he was around. And that is going to, in theory, make teams more one-dimensional. The problem is, as you kind of referred to, is that secondary might be chicken. If Jalen Johnson isn't what we think he is, if Desmond Trufant isn't playing, they don't necessarily need Desmond Trufant to be great. Just be like Prince Amukamara from 2018, and we can live with that, and Jalen Johnson, being what they hope he is, staying healthy is going to be another big thing. That's what you need. But
I think there's more question marks in the defensive secondary than there is anywhere on offense.
Most likely, yeah. Offensive line or tight end might make a run for the money.
That is true. That is true.
But
we still have 14 tight ends, don't we?
Yeah, and how many of them are good?
Yeah, you don't think JP Holtz is going to break out?
Cornerback is one of the biggest holes on this team, and it would be great if they were able to generate enough pass rush and enough pressure where it creates takeaway opportunities for the defense, and takes time away from quarterbacks to throw the ball. I'm telling you, man, if they're not getting to the quarterback, I think
you've got Goldman. You've got Goldman, who's been off for a year, and you've got Hicks, who's been up and down. So if those two guys in particular,
that's the main thing is that
pressuring in the middle.
Yeah, and Goldman's not a pass rusher too. That's the right thing.
But I'm saying he takes up offensive linemen that allow Hicks to get to the next level, or Bilal Nichols or whoever. Again, we've seen this over the past 2 years. Khalil Mack is an elite pass rusher, but you cannot rely on him on every play because these guys can't sprint for 60 plays a game while also trying to run through offensive linemen and so on and still be effective in the fourth quarter. So, they need something from someone other than Khalil Mack and Roquan Smith.
Yeah, I want to see what Sean Desai does with this defense. I'm curious to see what impact he has, if their scheme changes. We all know Chuck Pagano just wasn't it, right? We all know that didn't work. They've lost, Yeah, I think everybody's hoping for a Robert Quinn sighted Mike. I mean, I think everybody's still looking for it, but do I have concerns about the defense? Obviously, but I think we've all come to the realization that finally that defense isn't what it was, 3-4 years ago. It's just not. So it's always going to be in that bend, don't break mode. I'm more curious to see what their coaching looks like than anything. But
and look, Matt, I'm scarred. The reason why I bring this up is because just when the Bears offense started getting good under, my boy, Jay Cutler, the defense was abysmal. It was just awful. Everyone got really old really fast, and suddenly they were giving up 50 burgers left and right. I mean, they were giving up 35, 40, 50 points a game. I can't watch that. And then people were bitching that the offense wasn't very good when in reality they're scrambling to come back from down 28-0 in the first half. It's like I don't care who's under center. I don't care if it's Justin Fields. You're not going to score on every drive. It just doesn't happen. Even the Chiefs don't score on every drive. So this idea that, well, if the defense gives something up right away, we're dead. That's a problem for me. And the defense has to stay good, I guess, is the best way for me to think of it, in order for the offense to be efficient or effective.
They need to at least be okay.
I was going to say they don't need to be elite. They need to be, decent, right?
Okay. Yeah, as long as you're not giving up 17 or 20 points in the first half, you're probably all right. That I think that's the key. Because you're not, even if you're behind, you're not playing catch up by 3 scores. That was the biggest issue with some of those teams, 8 years ago, 7, 8, 9 years ago, whatever. Let's move on. We're gonna jump off of football and move to Major League Baseball. The trade deadline's coming up, July 31st, which it is every year except for last year, which was just a circus. Let's start with the White Sox here. The White Sox are still in first place. They've scuffled a bit over the last couple games, but a team that really has been impressive, considering all of the people that are out of the lineup, and they're getting some of them back, which is great. I mean, at one point they started getting these guys back, and they were able to DFA Adam Eaton and let some of these other guys go who were just kind of I don't want to say dead weight, but not really pulling their weight. The main question here is, and I have my opinion, but I'll ask you guys first. Matt, I'll let you go first. What do the White Sox absolutely number one thing they need at the trade deadline?
Middle relief, hands down. They need bullpen help. That's it. I mean, you're gonna get your offense back with all these guys coming off the IL, almost called DL. They need pitching. These starters.
That's an unwritten rule, Matt. You can't call it the DL anymore.
I didn't. I caught myself.
Yeah, good cover.
I caught myself. No, to me, you got to go out and get a reliever and a solid one. The only thing I don't know is what do you pay to get that, right? Like, what do you have? What are you willing to give up? I guess, right? Like, do you think that's the missing piece? Do you think that a solid middle reliever is the missing piece to get this
currently for the White Sox with the guys they have coming back? Yes, it's 100% middle relief. And I hate to say this because I know people don't like when we talk about, when anybody talks about crosstown trades, but the Cubs have like 3 really, really good middle relievers. I mean, do you make that trade if you're the White Sox? Do you pick up a Ryan Tepera? Do you pick up a Chafin? Or do you go all out and maybe go for a Craig Kimbrell?
So from my perspective, I mean, I think it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world to double up, so to speak, with grabbing a Kimbrel. If they really felt inclined to do that, I'm not so sure. I feel like it might be like grabbing one of the more inexpensive options that you might be able to get. Because here's one thing. I think that if you're looking for one arm in particular, or like one-handed arm, I would be looking for a lefty reliever, because Aaron Bummer would normally be that guy, but he's been the unholy combination of unlucky and bad this year. Not the entire year, but I mean, he's had his issues, man. And I think that on the right-hand side of things, no one touched Michael Kopech really. So and he's going to be a bullpen arm for most of this. And when they cut it down to a 4-person rotation eventually, you might be able to have Dylan Cease and Michael Kopech in the bullpen as righty arms. So I feel like they really need to focus on the left-hand side of things more than the right-hand side. And I don't hate the idea of like a Kimbrel as he's your 8th inning guy. Hendricks is your 9th inning, because you don't need to touch Hendricks. You don't have closer issues, but I do think that if there's you want a good arm regardless of the handedness, right? I think that they really need some left-handed help, because Garrett Crochet has been I kind of hate the way that they've utilized him as a just straight up bullpen arm. No one knows what he's supposed to be, right? Is he supposed to eventually be a starter? Are you going to have him be a bullpen guy? What do you want from him? Because he's not pitching frequently enough to get in a groove. And then you put him in there in these goofy ass situations, like in an extra inning game, because you don't want to put Liam Hendricks in when you just should. And then, Garrett Crochet is giving up the runner on second base coming around to score. And it's not even all entirely his fault, but it's just like, this is not good handling of him. So
man, we got Kyrie fired up on this one.
So I'm just like, in theory, Garrett Crochet should be fine. Aaron Bummer should be fine, but I just don't feel good enough about it. So I would love to see a lefty arm. From the right-handed side of things, what really comes down to it in the playoffs, they got plenty of right-handed arms you can probably trust. But damn it, they need someone.
So Matt, I mean, to Kyrie's point, is just looking at it from, hey, there's a guy close by that he can drive to the stadium after we trade for him. Is Andrew Chafin the guy? Because there's your lefty. I mean, he's been dominant.
Yeah, and I don't think you'd have to give up a whole lot for him. So why not? I mean,
Right.
that would make perfect sense to me. That's the other thing. I thought you were going to go Kimbrel, and I don't like that idea, just because we've had this conversation, back in with the Cubs. You put a closer in a role that he's not used to. I don't like it. We've seen bad Craig Kimbrel, and the Cubs are going to want a whole lot for Craig Kimbrel. He's probably their chip. He's the one guy they're going to hold on to for as long as they can to get the most that they can. So the Sox, they would have to give up a lot. They'd have to give up a lot to get Kimbrel, and then you're going to shift his role around and kind of mess with it. Like I don't like that idea. I just don't. If you needed a closer, sure, but you got one. I wouldn't.
I mean, you're talking about a guy with a .51 ERA. If you're not asking for everybody they have,
yeah. And Kyrie, and forgive me, I'll be honest. What do they have to give up? Like, that's the other question. Who do they have to give up at this point? Who would you be okay partying with?
Most of their prospects have graduated. I mean, I get that. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it really depends on what they're looking to do, because their issues are, I mean, they've had a lot of their guys out this year, but they're all going to come back.
Yeah, are they trying to make the run this year for sure? Like, is this the year that you're close enough, you have to go for it? Like, do you have to to give up a lot to put your team obviously in the best position this year to win, or do you kind of hold back, not sell the farm for people, and then
that's fine. If I'm the Cubs, I'll take Jake Berger back. No big deal.
That was a name I was going to mention. Is that I've been talking to a few of my buddies, on the White Sox side of things, and they're saying, yeah, Jake Berger is probably a solid candidate to get moved because
he's blocked.
Yeah, there's no real place for him. He's not taking over at third because Yohan Moncada is going to be there for a long time. Right. He's not taking over at first because chances are Jose Abreu or Andrew Vaughn's going to be there.
What about this? Do you, Kyrie, do you think that it might be an option for them? I mean, look, is Nick Madrigal the answer at second? Do you move Yohan to second and put Berger back at third?
No. Yohan stays at third. He's found himself at third. He's one of the best third basemen in the league by WAR. He stays. No changing him back. I don't think he was ever particularly natural at second base. Mm-hmm. I would say, Nick Madrigal was the shame of it was that he was starting to play really well when he got hurt. Because I think that there were times where I was like, you know what, man, you can send Nick Madrigal and I don't mind. to be honest with you, I still wouldn't mind if you sent Nick Madrigal.
Right.
The question is, right, like who's playing there, right? Because you're having this issue right now. Who plays second base? Leury Garcia is bad, right? He's had a nice little stretch there where, you know, he's slugging the heck out of the ball and it's like, oh my God, Leury legend, you know, but then but then you're reminded that he's bad,
Right.
you know, all things considered. So you don't want Leury Garcia starting second base in a playoff game for you. You want Danny Mendick starting second base in a playoff game for you. I don't, you know, but your options are getting.
What are your other options? Jake Lamb when he comes back. I mean, like.
Also, no. And I'm saying, you know what, Jake Lamb, better than I thought he was going to be. Absolutely better than.
Yeah, but he's batting like 220 or something. I mean, he's not a useful piece on a playoff team.
Replacement level completely. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I just, you know, I don't know. It's confusing to me as far as what the Sox can and should do, because the great thing for the Sox is they only, and I put only in quotes, they only really need middle relief. It's not like they need a corner outfielder who's a stud and they have to trade for him. It's not like they need a full-time catcher who's a stud and they have to trade for him in order to complete that
like
roster.
Adam Frazier or something like that, you know, in terms of second base, I've seen a lot of people who've said they could get behind that. Again, it really depends on who you're giving up.
Isn't that just a luxury at this point? Isn't getting a good enough second baseman a luxury at this point? I think, kind of in contrary to your original point, I don't see an issue with them going into the playoffs with some of the guys they have at second base because of the guys they're getting back at other positions. Guys like Luis Robert, guys like Eloy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
assuming that they play the way that they're going to play coming off of this rust. I'll say Eloy, right? Eloy's just going to hit because Eloy hits.
Well, he can't. Yeah, he can't.
You know, but I'll say, like, just in terms of his bat, you're not worried about Eloy's bat. Eloy's bat is going to hit. That's what it does. Luis Robert, as long as he's healthy, I mean, I feel good about that. But again, like you saw last year, you just don't know for sure, you know, what that bat is going to look like for him this year, having missed all this time and having to readjust. So it would be a luxury, yes, but I think that in such a weird year where you know that you're not getting Nick Madrigal back, I guess I just wonder if you can survive, to be honest with you, because in theory, on paper, yeah, you can, but in practice, I don't know. That said, I mean, yes, you need relief help because in theory, right, your bullpen should be good in theory, but it has not been in practice, you know, for much of the year. So that's something you need to address. So, I mean, I would say that more likely than not, you're probably going to see the relief side of things, and they may well just ride with this offense and see what happens. But it's going to be worrisome. It'd be worrisome either way, but you know, we'll see.
Let's move on to the north side. You know, MLB trade deadline. By the way, if you are watching, Mike, Scott, saw your names pop up. We appreciate it. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitch, and we are also on YouTube. This is the Weekend Wake Up. I'm Vito Abenanti. That is Kyrie Thompson and Matt Moore. Right now, we're talking MLB trade deadline. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, the Cubs are going to be sellers. It's become painfully obvious. It should have been painfully obvious before spring training, but I digress. We've had that conversation before as well. It seems like there is a laundry list of Cubs players who could be on the way out. The person in me who's watched baseball and watched the Cubs and watched how things go for most of my life realized that I feel like they're only going to trade maybe like two guys, and everyone else is going to be here until the end of the year, and then they're going to lose them all in free agency. But, you know, Kyrie, I'll start with you. If you're the Cubs, who do you absolutely have to trade?
Well, I think that to me, you're definitely trying to trade Chris Bryant right now, because that is going to be, oh God. I mean, if you lose him for nothing, I feel like that's tough, because he's you're probably one of your most decorated players. I don't know that I see Anthony Rizzo getting traded, to be honest with you. I don't know. But I would definitely be trying to trade the hell out of Kris Bryant. I would be trying to trade Wilson Contreras. I would be trying to trade Craig Kimbrell. Craig Kimbrell should not be on your team. He should be gone now. As a matter of fact, we should check right now to see if he is gone, because that's how we need to be right now. And I mean, if you can get value for anybody else, I feel like I'm not sold on Anthony Rizzo getting traded. Not that they shouldn't, look into it, but because of the whole, Mr. Cub kind of thing that he's got going on, like I feel like that would be a whoa, like that's a bombshell. Javi Baez, I said this in the past. I feel like if there's one guy that gets kept, for a decent amount, it might be Javi Baez. I know how you feel about that, but I'm just that's kind of how I see it. But
you had to say that because you knew I was going to say something about it. I wanted this guy gone for 5 years.
Literally anybody else who has value got to go, and Kris Bryant's at the top of my list because he's already gone. He's not coming back, right? And the thing is, like, yeah, other teams might know that, right? But you still need to get what you can. Well, like that man still net you some prospects for sure, some good prospects.
To me, I still think it's Kimbrell that's your ultimate chip. That's your ace in the hole. That's you're holding on for dear life just to get as much as you can in return for him, and just pray to God he doesn't get hurt, right? If he does, I hate to say it, oh well, but you have to rebuild your franchise. This is how you do it. This is how you start to do it. So Kimbrell's at the top of my list. You have to play whoever you have to play against each other to drive that price up and get him out of here while he's still hot.
Yep, most definitely.
Kris Bryant, obviously, like we all know where that's going, but Kyrie, as you said, so does everybody else. So what can you actually get for Kris Bryant that will help you rebuild, right? Like everybody knows he's not going to come back. Everybody probably knows he doesn't want to come back, like that he doesn't want to be here. His dad's running his mouth. Like there's all that stuff that's going on with Kris Bryant. Like I guess just to get it over with, maybe you get it over with, but I certainly don't. I mean, this is weird to say, but they're almost in a good position for what they want to do, right? They've got guys that guys that have a little bit of value.
To make the moves.
No, I know. I'm with you there. I'm not saying like hold on to him, don't trade him, but for once you can kind of dictate. You can kind of play other teams against each other and get rid of these pieces. You have pieces for whatever reason they don't fit together and they haven't worked together, but you have valuable pieces that you can get to actually restart this rebuild that we all knew was coming. So I'm of the opinion, hold on for dear life to these guys until you can get the absolute best deal and get them out of here. I don't care who they trade. It is what it is. This team is done. The core is gone. The window is slammed shut. Like it's done with. I think you keep on to Rizzo because, like Kyrie said, he's Mr. Cub, and it's the Cubs. And Vito, we've grown up with this. People fall in love with guys, and they don't want to get rid of him. He's that guy. He's not going to go anywhere. If you traded Anthony Rizzo, do you think the fans would be happy about that? I think out of anybody,
it doesn't matter. They'll still show up.
Oh, we're going all.
I was going to say, there'd be some empties out there. I've seen some pictures lately.
Yeah, but that lasts until spring training, and then everyone's the Cubbies, the Cubs are back. Look, man, I've been a Cubs fan my whole life. I know all about it.
Yeah, they'll find reasons to be like, you know what, maybe they could be pretty decent this year or something.
Yeah.
Like that, and
the guy we got from Atlanta is going to be a great first baseman.
What, like 10 years? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. No, so look, Matt, you brought up Kris Bryant. You brought up his dad. I will say this. It's a rarity, but I completely agree with Joe Buck in his assessment of if he doesn't ask that question while Kris Bryant is mic'd up on a national stage, then he's a bad journalist. Like, he's bad at his job. I completely agree with that. Yeah. Look, Kyrie, I'm not going to go into my Javi Baez. I should have been gone 4 years ago, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. They're not going to trade Javi Baez, and here's why. All of the main contenders that would be in on a guy like Javi Baez already have shortstops. So You're not trading for Javi Baez and then trying to give him a contract to play second base. It's just not going to happen, especially since he's an elite defensive shortstop. Yes, he drives me nuts at the plate, but he's not going anywhere. When it comes to Rizzo, I mean, look, we're all in agreement on Chris Bryant. I would love it if they could sign him, but Scott Boras is Scott Boras. Chris Bryant is Chris Bryant. Neither one of them want him in Chicago, and the Cubs shouldn't pay him $250 million or $300 million. It's just not going to happen, especially after the last 3 years. As far as Anthony Rizzo goes, I think that if the Cubs supposedly offered him $70 million and he didn't take that, and they re-offer him $70 million, that's it. That's what you're offering him. I don't care if he wants 120. I don't care if he took a family-friendly or a team-friendly deal the first time because he wanted to make sure he had a guaranteed contract. Good for him. That's great. I'm not paying a 33 or 34 or 35-year-old first baseman with back problems who has very obviously slid a bit. Maybe it's because of the contract talk. Maybe it's because the team's garbage. I don't know. But I'm not paying him $100 million.
No, you're not paying just to pay him at this point.
Correct. I'm not paying him for what he did for 5 years.
Or like his leadership or like anything like that. Because I think, yeah.
I'll give you $20 for your leadership. I don't. That doesn't mean anything on a bad team when we're paying you $25 million a year and you're on the IL for 6 months. It doesn't make any sense to me. You mentioned Wilson Contreras, Kyrie. I would not trade Wilson Contreras ever. And we've had this talk before. I'm still a build up the middle guy. Okay. So if you have an elite catcher, which Wilson Contreras is, he might not be an elite framing catcher, but he creates outs on the base paths with his arm. And the guy can hit. So if you have a good hitting catcher and you have a guy who can also throw guys out, unless someone's giving you their top 3 prospects, it's just not happening for me.
Yeah.
Everyone else is fair game.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I think everybody's got to be available.
Yeah, I'm saying if you really want to rebuild, right? And if that's really what guys that nets you most. That said, I mean, yeah, I ultimately agree in terms of the talent and the value that he has. The value is part of what I'm talking about, though. That's why you think about it.
Look, I'm a big believer in Wayne Gretzky was traded. Okay, anyone's up for trade, but you have to get the value. If you're not getting elite prospects for Wilson Contreras, he goes nowhere. You don't have anyone really pushing him. Yes, they have 2 guys. They have 2 catchers in the minors who are supposed to be, these good players, but they're years away. So you have no one pushing him. There's no reason for it. I get it. If they trade everyone, the team's going to be garbage next year and so on, but who cares? You don't give these guys up just to give them up just because. That's not really how building organizations works. The Cubs should know that based on what they did in 2012, 13, 14, and that kind of stuff. But just on my end, I'm not giving him up. That's pretty much all we have for the MLB trade deadline week. We could go a little more in depth as to what Rob Manfred said, but I think we'll do that a little bit later. We'll do that on a later show, basically talking about the extra innings rules and baseballs and so on. We've got plenty of time to talk about that. It's time. It's time for my favorite news segment. It's called Unsanctioned Buffoonery. And this week, Cole Beasley goes full Murica. For those of you that don't know, the NFL has come out with basically some protocol involving COVID. And the gist of it is if unvaccinated players end up with COVID and there are enough of them and it forces a team to cancel a game, if they cannot reschedule it during the 18-week season, they forfeit that game. It goes into their record as a loss for playoff seeding and so on, which means you're now affecting the team's bottom line and so on. So the reason they did this, and I don't blame the NFL for doing this, is because you're going to have guys, I can guarantee you, who are unvaccinated, who end up with COVID, and who cost their teams games. So what they're doing is basically putting it on the team to say, do you want this guy on your roster with the potential of him screwing up your season? Well, that's where Cole Beasley comes in, because Cole Beasley has been saying for weeks, he's been basically just like a lot of people that have decided to go this direction, spreads a bunch of information that doesn't make any sense, talks about how free, how his freedoms dictate that he shouldn't have to get the vaccine, goes off on these rambling rants. And I mean, I could go through his Twitter profile for hours and still be entertained later on. He even said a couple days ago, nothing has changed. I'm still living freely. Good night. He had a rambling tweet that didn't make any sense whatsoever that Chris Ranji from Chicago actually called him out on. But is this like Cole Beasley thinks very highly of himself, because he's basically saying, well, yeah, they can cut me, but they're going to cut the best slot receiver in the game when the offense is predicated on slot receivers and all this stuff. I think Cole Beasley might feel more highly about himself than the Buffalo Bills do. And he apparently doesn't care. Yeah, I don't think the Bills are really going to cry themselves to sleep at night if Cole Beasley is no longer on the team. But while we're on this topic of this insanity and how we can't sanction this buffoonery, because that's exactly what it is, Kyrie, this guy has gotten to a point where he makes a joke about how I'm going to be fine. I have enough wealth for my family. I'm going to take my CTE and move on, which is humorous, because the argument I've seen is, well, these guys make the decision to do stuff like this. They should be allowed to make the decision on a vaccine, except for the part where CTE only affects them and their brain, not the people around them. But I digress. I'm not really sure how this is going to end up, Kyrie, but it appears that the NFL and some of their teams are kind of doubling down on, if you're a problem for us, if you're going to affect us in this way, we don't really need you.
Basically, this is that private businesses can set whatever rules they want and do whatever they want to protect their investment line that everybody was so willing to jump on when Colin Kaepernick was kneeling for the national anthem, or anytime anybody protests ever, or says anything that doesn't jive with the culture of the what have you, and they become a distraction, so they let you go, right? So now we're having that where COVID almost actually affected. I mean, it almost certainly did affect the NFL's bottom line last year, because everybody had COVID. It almost affected people's game checks last year. A bunch of games had to get pushed back, a positive test, and barely by the teeth were able, and it caused shuffling. And I mean, somehow managed to get the season without missing any games. But you think they want to do that again this season? Player about the NFL Players Union not pushing back hard enough against this, but basically here was their response. Last year, when we did this season in the middle of a blown pandemic, everybody still got paid. Nobody, this whole people might have to sacrifice their game checks because of missed games or because they're unvaccinated or whatever. It's you know what? Y'all didn't have to miss games last year because you stayed safe enough, but it almost happened. There is a way to help ensure that it does not happen. Not foolproof. It's not. Let me reiterate: getting the COVID, you have a silver bullet that means you'll never get COVID. Okay, so stop acting like, well, people are still getting COVID, even though they have the vaccine. Stop acting like that actually means anything. This is how it has to still get the flu if vaccine, but you know what it means? It means that you don't get a case of the flu, and it means that you're less likely to transmit it. That's the whole point. of getting the COVID vaccine. So, if you don't, basically the NFL is saying, you know what, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But if you screw up and if you screw it up for your team, this whole team culture, do it all for the team. That's how they're going at this. Like, you're not just screwing it up for yourself. You screwed it up for everybody else, and you're going to cost them money. And so you've already seen coaches duck out. They're like, we're going to cost us
Some
games.
have been let go. Some have just flat out said, I'm out.
Yeah, you can't be here either. Whether it's mutual or somebody was just like, I feel too strongly about this. Whatever, man, whatever. All I'm gonna say, like, this is how I'll wrap this up for now. We'll see if I get on another thing here in a second. But you know what? I said this the other day. Sure, it's a personal choice of whether you want to do it or not. Okay.
Oh, Kyrie. Yeah, you're breaking up. Where you at? All right, we got you back. Hold on. Go ahead.
Anyway, it's a personal choice if you want to do it or not. But that choice does affect the people around you. And if you don't believe that, then why don't you go ask all the people who aren't here anymore? After last, you go ask all the people that suffered in 2020. Well, you can't. In some cases, you know what?
Over 600,000 Americans and over 4 million people across the world
would have done them a whole lot of good, if there was a vaccine back then. So you know what? Go ahead and do what you want to do, but there are consequences to your actions. And in this case, if your actions are going to cost your employer, going to cost your teammates money,
yep,
and all that stuff, then mess around and finds, and you go ahead and sacrifice thousands and millions of dollars just because you don't get a shot.
Well, dude, it's already having him and one of his teammates were getting after it against each other on Twitter. The linebacker. I don't know
Jerry Hughes Jr. was going at. Yeah.
Jerry Hughes, yep.
Yeah. So already you're seeing that divide in the locker room between the I'm sorry, the wrong way of thinking. I'll just say it, and the right way of thinking. Like.
People are going to come after you. Anyone watching this, they're going to come after you for telling them they're wrong.
I don't care. I'm sorry. I just don't.
You're entitled to your opinion, but your opinion can be bad and it can be wrong. Continue.
Your opinion can be hot garbage.
So okay. So let me get at the double standard of this whole argument, right? A lot of people, especially athletes or I follow trainers online. A lot of their arguments when they're anti-vax is, well, I'm in shape. I take care of myself. I'm not going to get this, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So you're not afraid of catching the actual disease because you're in shape. You do all this other, you're this, alpha male, but you're scared of a vaccine because why? Because wouldn't that same super body of yours counteract anything that the vaccine might do negative to you? I don't see it. I don't get it. I understand that, they rushed it out. They had to. They're doctors. When did people start thinking that they were smarter than people that get paid to do this? It boggles my mind. It's the most selfish thing that you can do. And for him to die on this hill, he is going to be more known for this than anything he's ever done in his football career. So I hope he enjoys Fox News when he retires or can't play anymore.
Do you know why? Because he's Cole Beasley. Look at his football career.
Well, but exactly. So,
but hey, you know what? Maybe he's setting himself up for a career after this.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's got to be what it is, right?
Yeah. Newsmax.
Newsmax. Yeah. Look, he's really excited that Lenny Dykstra agrees with him. So that should tell you everything you need to know about this entire situation. And my favorite part, and this works for everything across the entire spectrum, particularly on social media, but my favorite part is, so 90% of the medical community agrees in X, Y, and Z. You found 10%, right? That agrees with you, who has nothing to base this on, but you found 10%, right? So when you find that 10% and that 10% throws something out there, your response to everything is, well, and I bet this gets ignored. I bet no one pays attention to this article. I bet you try to shoot this down too.
It's like that meme, dude, where the guy's sitting at the computer and he's like, "Look, honey, I found something that 99% of doctors miss." Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's so ridiculous. Like,
exactly.
Can you imagine if this, like, God forbid, if this was like the era that, like, when polio was around? Like, everybody, like, you just be in a wheelchair because you'd be like, "Oh, okay." Like, you thought that, you know,
or
like
you'd be dead.
Well, yeah, that's it, right? Like it's insane that all of a sudden, like, science can't be a thing. Like, your personal belief, like, you believe in science
I did my own research. I watched 26 YouTube videos.
You know, did you do all this research with all the supplements that you put into your body, all the shots that you probably take? Did you do any of that, or did you go to your doctor and your doctor said, right, "Hey, man, if you want to play, you got to take this," and you do it?
Let's lighten this up a bit, because I don't. I think we're all on the same page here. This is absolute buffoonery, and
I cannot sanction it.
We can't sanction it. We can't sanction this buffoonery. I don't even know where I was going to go with this, because I wanted to keep it. I wanted to keep it a little lighter. Like, is this? You know what? I'm out. I'm tapping out. I can't even.
We silenced them.
I can't even make. I can't even make light of this stupidity.
Hey, this is keeping it lighter. Look at this. Look at what we've accomplished. You and me, man. Oh my God.
But so, like, where is this?
Hold on.
Oh, he left. So
and now he's gone. He's just like, you know what? I just, like, he couldn't sanction this buffoonery so hard he had to peace out. You know what I mean?
We got into this at the beginning of the show. Just opinions from players that just don't make sense, right? So we got to talking about athletes' opinions that, like, just boggled our mind. Who's the guy that said the quote about the dinosaur?
Who was it? Mookie Wilson?
Mookie Wilson.
Yeah, because I thought Mayor Goldie Wilson.
Former left fielder of the New York Mets.
Or as Kyrie called them earlier, the Met.
Apparently I did that.
The New York Met. We weren't recording at that time, so I can't prove it, but it was there.
He said that. I'm just gonna say you're a liar. Okay, so you know what? Like, in to lighten things up in terms of people believing kind of crazy things. Here's one that I might at some point believe in my life. Who knows? Mookie Wilson, former left fielder of the New York Mets. At one point, when he was the New York Mets, apparently as a team, were talking about their favorite dinosaurs, or at least that's how the story goes. There's like apparently a whole like news article about it where they asked each member of the New York Mets of that time about in the 1980s about their favorite dinosaurs. And Mookie Wilson says this reportedly: "When I'm in a slump, I comfort myself by saying, if I believe in dinosaurs, then somewhere they must be believing in me. And if I believe in me, if they believe in me, then I can believe in me. Then I bust out."
It's just incredible. And I can't, now that's buffoonery I can sanction. Like, that kind of buffoonery I can sanction.
That's funny,
because we kind of talked about some of this other goofy stuff where it's like, there's no basis in reality for what some people believe. And you hear about it more from celebrities, obviously, because they have a platform to say these things. We talked about Kyrie Irving saying, he was a flat earther. And then I think he's a spherical earther now. Is that what we call him?
He recanted.
Reportedly, he never actually believed any of it. He literally just did it to troll everybody.
He was trolling people. Okay, yeah, because that's usually what happens when you find out you're a moron too.
Yeah.
I was trolling.
Somebody hacked my brain.
Yeah.
Somebody hacked my account.
Exactly. I was. This was another one. I saw this. Someone posted this. Speaking of flat Earth, someone on like it must have been on Facebook that I saw it, but someone was commenting on a flat Earth article, and it was obviously an article making fun of people who believe the Earth is flat. And you know what? If you believe the Earth is flat, good for you. Hop in a plane sometime and tell me how that works out for you. But it was the comment was like, someone going off on a rant about all of the things we believe that are wrong. And one of them was that it said the Earth is geocentric. And I found that hilarious because being geocentric means that we believe that the Earth is the center of either the universe or the solar system. So for the Earth to be geocentric, that means the Earth is the center of the Earth, which is not only confusing to me for a number of reasons, but also this person believes that the Earth is flat, but everything else in our solar system is spherical.
It's like the ceiling is
only the Earth is flat.
The ceiling is the roof.
The ceiling is the roof. That's a great Jordanism. You want to talk about he's got some great lines over time? Oh man, ceiling is the roof.
We do poll questions, and I thought of mine.
Oh yeah, we got to do a poll question today. Matt, what's the poll question for today?
If there was I'm gonna do this both ways. If there was a dinosaur that believed in veto, so he could do better, what would that dinosaur be? And what is the dinosaur that Vito would believe in, so he could do better?
That's a good question. Oh, here's the real question. Do they have to be real dinosaurs, or can they be completely fucking made up, like the dinosaurs in the Jurassic World series?
Yeah, because that's all I hear about in my house. Or the made up ones.
Gigliasana ronificus.
Hybrid dinosaurs included.
Yeah.
Okay. No. Hybrid dinosaurs are included. Perfect.
And if you want to make up your own dinosaur, like I'm cool with that too. Like, just explain what they do.
For those of you out there watching, today's poll question: if a dinosaur believed in veto, which dinosaur would it be? And in the inverse, which dinosaur would I believe in
to get you out of a slump?
To get me out of a slump. Oh my god! Why does it always have to be me, Matt? Why can't it be Kyrie?
It's your show.
It's not my show. It's our show.
Oh no!
It's been
your name.
It's been our show for a year and a half. Actually, funny story about that. So okay. I have sent like 6 messages to Facebook because it will not allow me to change the name of the show on the Facebook page. It just keeps saying that I've tried to change the name too many times recently. And I'm like, but it's not changing. So just let me change it and I won't try anymore.
Yeah, nope. I've definitely seen it.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
No one responds to you.
What do you just stalling.
Yeah, I am. The dinosaur that believes in me. Oh, this is tough. I really want to say Stegosaurus. Big Stegosaurus fan.
Kyrie's been waiting. Kyrie's been waiting like 6 years for this conversation.
Yeah, he really
right?
Has. Like, he really has. I mean, his music, his intro music used to be Jurassic Park.
It did indeed.
It all comes full circle.
It really does. Okay, now
we finally come full circle. What dinosaur do I believe in? What about? Only because I like the way this dinosaur took care of business in the first Jurassic Park, Dilophosaurus.
There's a venomous one too. I could see. Yeah, serious venom over there. I could some
dangerous shit there. Yeah, I don't know. Kyrie, who you got?
The dinosaur that believes in me is probably like a Utah raptor or something. It's a stockier, more badass version of the Velociraptor that I've been a big fan of for a long time. Raptor is my guy, and I really hope that I'm his. In terms of the dinosaur that I'm believing in, I reciprocate, that, but I am going to place myself at the altar of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, because it is the greatest. It is the GOAT. It is the GOAT eating dinosaur of all time. There are no arguments against it.
Wait, real quick, and I can see the name, and I can't recall it. Which one is larger? Was found later, larger than the T-Rex? Do you know what I'm talking about?
So there
very
are,
similar bipedal.
There are a few. So they're both South American, right? So there's okay. They're all hemispheres. There was the Spinosaurus, which is the biggest, meat-eating dinosaur, but is actually more of a fish eater, at least from what recent findings have shown. So people don't necessarily consider it the same, like, meat eating, kind of thing. It's a large pod for sure,
Okay.
But then you have the Carcharodontosaurus and the Giganotosaurus, which are both southern hemisphere, a little bit bigger than T-Rex, bigger heads and everything, but they weren't quite as solidly built. They were not they were probably as intelligent and as unique, and they probably weren't as powerful, and their teeth were not as long as railroad spikes. So also
I love this. For those of you watching right now, first of all, tell us why, and second of all, I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am, because I'm a big nerd for this stuff, and Kyrie's the expert. I mean, Kyrie's an expert on a lot of things, but this is where he really,
forget
sports.
Who cares about my football opinions?
When I said he's been waiting 6 years for this, I wasn't lying.
That was not an exaggeration.
No, it wasn't hyperbole.
Is there an Allosaur? Is there an Allosaurus?
Yeah. So actually, the Allosaurus is before the T-Rex.
Okay.
Is from the period
larger though, right?
No. Allosaurus
Okay.
was a little bit smaller. It was thinner. It was a little faster. It had longer arms, but T-Rex was bigger, more massive, all that. And actually, with the two big predators that I mentioned that were bigger than T-Rex in the Cretaceous period, but they just lived down south, they actually evolved from the same line as the Allosaurs. So the Allosaurs gave birth to those big guys.
Let me ask you a quick question. Ankylosaurus, right? Is that a thing?
Ankylosaurus, yeah.
Yeah, Ankylosaurus.
Yeah, Ankylosaurus.
So here's my question there. That's still a thing, right? Because I feel like there have been dinosaurs that from my youth, when I was younger, that are no longer in existence as dinosaurs. They were either a variation of another dinosaur, or they just, you know what I'm saying? Like,
people had the Brontosaurus debate for a long time, and actually I think that the Brontosaurus might be making a comeback as a separate genus, because they talked about it as being like an Apatosaurus, right?
Sure.
But that's one. A bunch of people were talking about this. One guy is talking about Triceratops as maybe not being a distinct dinosaur to itself, and that maybe it was a version of another dinosaur called a Torosaurus. I don't think that's quite gotten the traction yet. But yeah, no, I know that that discussion. But no, Ankylosaurus, as far as I know, is 100% its own dinosaur. We call it the club tail in this house.
The club tail. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, so here's another question.
The toppy.
Which one?
The toppy, as she calls it.
What's the toppy?
Triceratops.
Triceratops. Okay. I feel like the evolution, and I use that term in a strange way, the evolution of dinosaurs, or what we know about dinosaurs, is so, like, it reminds me of how we change whether or not Pluto is a planet every 7 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, we go through this process where we're like, well, we found more information. We're just going to lump these dinosaurs together. This one never existed, so I don't know where you got that one from. And then a couple years later, they're like, well, not only did it exist, but we're actually going to replace the one we thought it was. And I'm like, oh my, I can't keep up with this, Well,
I'll tell you what, I mean, to wrap it all up neatly in a bow, because it has interesting, undertones for what we were talking about just before this. in science, you find out new information. Science is always changing. Sometimes it's going to mean that what you used to think is, is wrong, or at least needed to be adjusted. So yeah, it can be like that. And dinosaur science in particular is, it's based on fossils and bones. So there's a lot of stuff we're never going to know about dinosaurs. And there's a lot of stuff we're not going to know more for sure until we dig more of them out of the ground. So that's one thing that's fascinating to me about it.
No, we should do a sideshow of this because I don't know. I mean, this show was a sideshow, like a circus sideshow, but we should do a separate show where we talk about this kind of stuff because I love it. I don't know if Matt wants to stick around for it, but
I have dinosaur flashcards, man. I'm ready.
Oh, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, eventually, okay. But I'm
you're
ready.
going to need to have those for a later show because I feel like what we're going to need to do is like
quiz. Is it going to be a quiz show?
We're going to need like all dinosaur first teams and like all dinosaur like an all pro dinosaur team or something. Like
you think T-Rex is the quarterback?
How's he gonna throw the ball, man? He's got short arms.
I mean, he's got short arms, but he's got a quick release.
He's got a lot of power, but truthfully, if you're asking me to put a predatory dinosaur, especially back there, yeah. I'm talking like a Utah Raptor or something.
Okay,
got the strength, got the arm, all of it.
Definitely not the Bronchiosaurus. That was Mike Glennon. We all know how that worked out. So definitely not.
Brachiosaurus is your tight end. Just throw it up.
Yeah.
Just throw it up.
He's Jimmy Graham. He's got about the same speed, same height. Just stand in the end zone, dude. That's all you got to do. And Velociraptors are wide receivers, right? I mean, they have to be.
Or cornerbacks.
Or corners, yeah.
Yeah, Velociraptor's your nickel back, probably.
Yeah, all right. I can see it. Yeah, he's got the speed for it.
Should that be the whole question? Draft up your all dinosaur all pro team.
That actually might be solid. Maybe we could have 2 poll questions. All right, gentlemen. I think we've had enough punishment for one day. I appreciate everyone who watched the show. This is the weekend wake up.
You're still here.
I'm Vito. That's Kyrie. That's Matt. I appreciate all the talk today. We had a great show, and somehow we ended up talking about dinosaurs at the end. By the way, Cole Beasley, is he still on the Bills at the start of the season or no?
I hope not.
What do you think, Kyrie?
No.
All right. I don't think so either. I think they cut him. I think they just eat the money and say whatever.
I have to go study my dinosaur facts.
I was going to say, are you scrolling through these right now?
I am. I've got like 100 cards in my hand right now. This is fantastic.
See, you learn something new every day on this show. All right, gentlemen, you have a great week. I don't believe we'll be back, I won't be on next week. If you guys want to do the show, that's on you, but I will not be on next week. I will be out O-Town. So you gentlemen have a great week, and maybe we'll try and set something up for either later this week or the following week.
Yeah, we're going to need our training camp updates, that's for sure.
That is true. Yes, all right, gentlemen, for Kyrie Thompson and Matt Moore, I am Vito Abenanti. This has been the Weekend Wake Up Sports and Dinosaur Talk on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch.